So Alabama goes this Wednesday to Starkville, to the Hump, a place that we have had some success here recently, but a place that will be very, very tough to play. Mississippi State has done a really good job from a home court advantage standpoint. They did drop the Kentucky game at home, but was able to knock off Ole Miss at home the next weekend. So they also beat South Carolina at home. Have were able to beat Pitt at home earlier this year, and in general just have had some pretty good games. I think that Mississippi State is a team that Alabama matches up well against if we shoot well, but is a team that definitely can expose you if Alabama does not play their game, right? Mississippi State is known as a very good defensive team. Funny enough, actually this season they're a slightly better offense than they are defense, but their defense is still what they're kind of known for. And their defense is what they're known for because they have a couple of guys that are just absolute dogs, right? You have a guy like Cam Matthews, and he is probably the guy which you're most concerned about potentially taking over a game. He's 8th in the country in steals, just a super physical guy, really good at rebounding, and is somebody that you're going to be trying to figure out what's the best way to attack him. The potential foul trouble he's in or not in is something you're going to want to watch. He is somebody that at times will get into a little bit of foul trouble just because of how aggressive he is from a defensive standpoint. And it is something that you just kind of have to watch when you're playing Mississippi State. Another guy that you really have to make sure doesn't beat you is a guy like Josh Hubbard. Last season, he was a freshman, so this season, Josh Hubbard is somebody that's got some extra experience under his belt, is a guy that can hit a lot of threes, is a guy that's a really good offensive option. So he is another guy that obviously you're going to want to see really good defense, stay in front of, come out a little further just because he is going to test your range from a three-point perspective. So they do have a couple of guys, and there are more, right? But a couple of guys that are just really good at doing stuff. And the thing with Josh Hubbard is he's actually – seeing this here, he's actually 39th in the country in turnover rate, right? So he does, from a point guard perspective, he just does a really good job of not turning over the ball. Mississippi State is not an elite three-point shooting team outside of Josh Hubbard, right? Hubbard is by far their best three-point shooter. They do have Riley Kugel and Claudell Harris, so they have a few more three-point shooters than they have had in years past. But Hubbard is one of their better three-point shooters of the group. It looks like Harris actually is around 35% as well as Kugel. So all three guys kind of sitting around 35% as kind of their best shooters. But in general, just all of these guys have done a pretty good job of turning Mississippi State into a better offense this season than they were last. I'm not expecting them to be a team that's just going to put up an absolute ton of threes. Will they put up more than Mississippi State has in years past? I think so, especially with Kugel and such. I think that they're going to put up some more threes. The stats kind of bear that out a little bit. That Mississippi State is much more of a little bit more of an offensive team this season than they have been in years past. But do not be mistaken that this is a very physical Chris Jans is a very physical coach. He's a coach that likes to coach defense, likes to have a physical defense. The rebounds are going to be fought, hard for, right? This is not going to be an easy game. Mississippi State has only dropped 4 games this season. Those were to Butler, Kentucky, Auburn, and Tennessee, right? Butler being the worst loss of those back around Thanksgiving, right? They have lost 3 games in conference, but again, none of those really bad losses. Kentucky is technically their worst loss, and that's still a completely fine loss. But obviously, when you lose a game at home in conference, it is not a good thing, right? It's what we talked about with the Alabama-Ole Miss game. When Alabama drops a game to Ole Miss at home or drops any game at home, that puts a mark on your resume because the conference is just incredibly tough this season and you have to defend your home court, right? So when you're looking at Mississippi State, I think the things that Alabama has to do is Alabama has to clean up some of the how they handle the physicality, right? I don't think in this LSU game, the most recent game, I think because of the lack of foul calls that got in Alabama's head, and Alabama did not handle the physicality very well. This is something that you are going to see against Mississippi State. You're going to see it against Auburn. You're going to see it against Tennessee, right? These are some games that are teams that are similar to A&M in a sense that they're just going to try to beat you up. And when those games get like that, Alabama has to know how to be able to handle themselves. It's part of the reason why you played Memphis in your preseason. It's the reason, obviously, you get to play a team like Houston. You get to play a team like Texas A&M earlier in the season. Right, you play all these teams with this physicality because you know that you're going to face it in the SEC, right? Mississippi State is one of those, right? You're also going into a hostile place to play. So I expect there will be Alabama fans in attendance due to the fact that it's, an hour and a half drive from Tuscaloosa, but this will be obviously majority Mississippi State fans. This will be a very good home crowd, with it being an 8 o'clock game. That's going to give time for people to get off of work and actually get to this game. So I do expect that this is going to be a pretty good home crowd. Also, with Alabama coming in and being a top team, this is, just has the makings of a really, really good home environment. I do think that Alabama is going to have a chance to be successful. It looks like, if you're looking at just kind of the big KenPom numbers, as where is Mississippi State not super great. They don't do a great job defending the 3-point line, actually. And they actually do give up quite a lot of threes and more assists than you would expect out of a good defensive team. So this is a situation where if Alabama is able to get into their offensive game, I think that Alabama potentially can get some extra threes off, get some assists, with maybe some just the way Mississippi State is trying to get us out of our game from a defensive perspective. However, some places that Mississippi State is really good, that they're top 30 in the country in offensive rebounding. So Alabama will have to rebound better in this game than they did against LSU, right? For whatever reason, I think Alabama has done better at this on the road and against better teams than they have against worse teams. For whatever reason, you see a team like LSU, and because of the 5 losses, I think that it subconsciously gets into the guys' heads, and they just did not play as well against an LSU as you potentially saw, rebounding against an A&M, right? A&M's number 1 in the country at offensive rebounding, but Alabama out-rebounded them. Versus LSU, we talked about how they're not a great rebounding team. Alabama gets out-rebounded, right? So it's really just a mental thing. You hope that you don't see that, especially this deep into the season with a lot of seniors on a team and a super experienced team. But unfortunately, it is something that Alabama is still going through, and it's something that you're definitely going to want to keep an eye on, because rebounding this game, especially in a home environment for Mississippi State, is something that obviously the offensive rebounds keep the crowd in the game. Another thing Mississippi State does a really good job of is stealing the basketball. Mississippi State is 12th in the country at creating steals. So similar to when we talked about the Vanderbilt team and the Ole Miss team about being able to create steals, especially if you're lazy with passes and telegraphing your passes. They're going to jump in your passing lanes. They're going to create steals. They're going to be on ball pressure. You're going to, that Cam Matthews that we talked about earlier. He's a big part of what they like to do on defense, and he is a huge piece of what they do as a team. They will steal the basketball if you're not going up physical, if you're not, making the right read, if you're not quick with your decisions, right? Because just because you make the right decision, if you wait too long to make that decision and Mississippi State knows where you're going with the ball, they have a chance to break on the ball, right? So all these things are things that Alabama is going to have to take into consideration for this game. These are things that I think Alabama needs to clean up, because we have seen some games this season that Alabama has been pretty good at it, right? The Vanderbilt game, Alabama did a pretty good job not turning over the basketball. Obviously, the defense in the second half was lackluster. So, personally, I was hoping that I would see, Alabama kind of put together a full game, keep the offense from the Vanderbilt game and put together some more of the defense for this LSU game. However, LSU's week to prepare really got them ready for the game in a way that I don't think that the team was fully ready for. Nate sounded like he had mentioned it to the team, but maybe they just didn't fully grasp what that meant. But Mississippi State is a team that will be prepared for this game, right? They are going to try, to make a push to be near the top of the conference. They have to defend their home court, just like I talked about Alabama defending their home court, right? So this will be a team that will be ready to play. This will be a team that is going to be trying to do everything in their power to win this game. I think that Alabama has a good chance of winning if they will take to the coaching, right? I think that Alabama is the better team. I think that Alabama matches up actually fairly well with Mississippi State because of your guys like a Muhammad Diabate. We will see if Darion Reed plays in this game. I'm actually just going to say we will see because supposedly he was tested and could have potentially gone in the LSU game, was tested and was, hey, we're not going to play him. Maybe he will play in the Mississippi State game. As for now, he's been questionable for the last few games and then gets ruled out just before the game. So if we have him, obviously that's an additional body. And I think from a physicality standpoint, it would be good to have him. He also gives you a wing defender and a wing guy that could potentially match up with like a Cam Matthews or a RJ Melendez, even a Caldell Harris, right? Mississippi State has some of these guys in that 6'4", 6'7" range that a guy like Darion Reed or a guy like Muhammad Diabate is a really good defensive option against because some of these guys can get heated up and going from an offensive end. So I would love to have Darion, but we will see if he ends up playing this game. I have no idea, as y'all can clearly tell, but we will see what ends up happening. I do think that Alabama actually wins this game. For whatever reason, I think Nate Oates has matched up really, really well with Chris Jans in the past. I know last season Alabama actually wins both. The home game Alabama wins by 8. The game in the game in Starkville Alabama wins by 8. The game in Coleman Alabama wins by 22. And then the season before, Chris Jans' first season, Alabama wins the game in Starkville by 11 and the game in Coleman by 3. So this is a situation where Alabama has been very successful in years past against Chris Jans, whether it been home or away. So I think that Nate Oates, A, knows what Chris Jans is going to try to do, and B, knows what his team is capable of. Also, for whatever reason, Alabama has just done a better job playing on the road than they have at home. I don't know why that reasoning is, but it really feels like Alabama is a little bit more fired up when they go on the road. Like the start to the game against A&M, the start to the game against Kentucky, both felt like better starts than even, honestly, the Vanderbilt game last game, right? Alabama ends up winning and going up big, but Alabama did not start that game super well. Alabama does not start this LSU game super well. However, on the road, we started much better, right? So I think there's something about this team and trying to go into a hostile environment, knowing the crowd's against you and just playing against that I think the team does really well for. And I do think that for whatever reason, I think that Alabama is going to find what it takes to win this game. So I am going to predict Alabama wins this game. I do think it's going to be a close game, though. I think that the defense and the physicality and the rebounding and such that Mississippi State brings to the table, and how Chris Jans is a coach. I just talked about all those games. The only one that was a pseudo blowout was the home game 2 years ago. Was the home game last year for Alabama. All other games were decided by 10, 11 points at the most. I think this is somewhere in the 6 to 8 point game range. So I'm going to say that this game is Alabama 84, Mississippi State 76. I do think that Alabama is going to find just enough to do what it takes to win this game. I think that Mississippi State is a good defensive team and just a good team overall. So I do think that this is a game that if the guys are not ready, right? If there's some level of just not prepared, Mississippi State will win this game. Bar none, no questions asked. But if Alabama is prepared, as they have been on the road this season, then I think that Alabama will win this game and will find a way to get out of Starkville with the win. So as I said, I'm going to go 84-76, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. I really appreciate all the support on all these episodes. They will continue to come out on Sundays and then on potentially, either Wednesday or Thursday, depending upon when our basketball game is. I'll try to record this next episode this week as early as possible so that y'all can watch it. It may come out on Friday, Probably will record it on Thursday so that it will come out on Friday so that y'all can listen as a preview for the Georgia game. But these episodes will continue to come out as quickly as I can get them out. Want to make sure I have all the information at my disposal when I record them. But I really do appreciate all the support on these episodes. Follow along on the YouTube or on Twitter if you are interested. I do appreciate the support, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.